what is it? Oh, good day. Good day, Uncle Cal. How you doing? I was looking up that citation. It wasn't an executive order or anything like that. It wasn't a official, I don't guess. I just saw it and I was looking it up. It was I guess it was a citation 31078 about the cannibalism. It's a protein made from human cells. The machine that they use is called a resonator, and it liquefies the body. Like instead of they use it for like water cremation. Instead of like flame cremation, cremating someone, they would have other means of doing it. And water cremation would be one. And I think the other one was called automation or something like that. Did I write that down somewhere? But it's a lot of laws that it's legal now for human composting. Whether you're gonna eat it, they're gonna make fertilizer with it for trees and flowers and plants and stuff. I don't know. It's unheard of to me, but it seemed like they've been doing this for a while. It's like Washington, allegedly, it's legal in these states: Washington State, Oregon, California, Vermont, Colorado. Yeah, just use your discernment, whatever you eating and stuff. I'm getting better and better with not eating anything, the very minimum. And I'm becoming okay with that. I'm becoming okay with like peanuts, almonds, and maybe a fruit on the side, some water with some cloves in it and stuff. And yeah, it's a shame. It really is. But let's read. We're going to read tonight. And as you know, I'm not reading the entire books anymore because that's more or less, it's more leaning towards copyright infringing. Yes, it's kind of like, if I'm reading the whole book, then they can lessen chances for people to go buy the book, if that makes sense. Which, I talk so much, it would be easy to just go buy the book and stuff, but it's just a loophole. So I do talk a lot, and I think that's probably what has prevented me from crossing the line with that. But now that I know, I'm just going to be reading some chapters out of each book. Not every chapter, because to read the book word for word, and then I do add my own words in the book when I'm reading it. If it's talking about white folks, I like to say white people. I like to say black people. I like to distinguish it when I'm reading. So yeah, I will be making some changes to that right there. But however, let's read and stuff. But first, let me get this out the way. The copyright disclaimer under 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. fair use of the use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. You know, every time I don't come on for a few days and stuff, I got to start all the way at the beginning again. Maybe not so much at the beginning, but definitely like on the first or second reading, second week or what have you and stuff. I can't just jump right back into it and stuff. It's always like the first time, baby. But we are reading Stamped from the Beginning, the definitive history of racist ideas in America. The definitive history of racist ideas in America. I was hoping before I found out what I knew to read this entire book so we can get a better understanding of where these inhumane ideas and thoughts and this mindset stemmed from and how it stems, how it began and stuff. But since that's not the case, we just gonna be reading some of the chapters that are more eye-catching, that just reach out to you and stuff. It would have been good reading and stuff. And that right there just possibly leaves the door open to read more of it in the future, because it is one of our books. It is one of our books that belongs to this library. So I think I was going to read Are You Ready for Freedom? Oh, I didn't see that one right there. Chapter 15 is Soul. I think we're going to go with Soul tonight. And I'll probably go back through and just circle the ones that we have read, because we did do off the bat 1 through 4. So, yeah, that way I can keep up with the chapters and stuff. And in the future and stuff, we go back and read some of it. I wanted to read The Birth of a Nation because, you know, we're going to watch that movie together. But we're going to do that chapter. And it's really saying I shouldn't read it, the entire chapter, word for word. But I got to. I just comment. I like to comment anyway when I'm talking about Black people. But I like to have the entire chapter and stuff so I can comprehend it and get the full gist of it. So, yeah, I will be reading the whole chapter when I pick a chapter. But I'll be commenting along the way and stuff. And I think that'll keep it better. That'll keep it somewhat safe and stuff. Yeah, Stamped from the Beginning, the definitive history of racist ideas in America. This is by Ibram X. Kendi. Ibram X. Kendi. I knew it was something when I saw this book, and I actually saw the revised version of this book after I found this one. Then I found that one right there. Some good books with a lot of knowledge in them. And we actually read about this right here. I'm going to have to find the rest of these notes from the beginning so that I can put them up somewhere and I can have them for easy access and stuff. Because check this out. There was no customary public outlet for a Maine woman's rage against the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Remember that paper I had, and I wrote down all of the states and all of their laws and their codes and their bills and acts, and they all seem to be one and the same, just a few words here and there were changed. But other than that, all of the states were sending each other their traps and their sabotages for our people. I just wanted to say that right there and stuff. So when I do find that, I'm going to put it up. This daughter of a famous clergyman, who was also the wife of a famous professor, knew men made the laws, and she knew men reacted publicly to laws. But Harriet Beecher Stowe was not a man, so her choices were limited. Ain't she the one that wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin? But let's read. She was not the only woman who was frustrated. As Stowe's biographer explained, the political impotence Stowe felt in the face of unjust laws was building up like water behind a dam for many middle-class women. The first major collective strike against the dam had come 2 years earlier at the first Women's Rights Convention, held in Seneca Falls, New York on July the 19th and July the 20th, 1848. Lady Quaker women organized the convention alongside Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who penned the meeting's Declaration of Sentiments, The Declaration pleaded for gender equality and women's suffrage, desires considered as radical as racial equality and immediate emancipation. Many of the early white women suffragists had spent years in the trenches of abolitionism, oftentimes recognizing the interlocking nature of American racism and sexism. The Seneca Falls Convention set off a series of local women's rights conventions over the next few years, especially along the northern abolitionist belt from New England to upstate New York and to the state where Harriet Beecher Stowe had lived before moving to Maine, Ohio. Suffragist and abolitionist Franna Dana Gage, one of the first Americans to call for voting rights for all citizens, regardless of gender or race, helped organize women's rights conferences across Ohio during the early 1850s. Gage's most memorable conference took place at a church in Akron, Ohio in 1851. But she was not the only celebrity there. A tall, thin, 50-something-year-old lady adorned by a gray dress, white turban, and sunbonnet walked into the church with an air of a queen up the aisle. An observer recorded. As white women buzzed for her to turn back around and leave, Sojourner Truth defiantly took her seat and bowed her head in disgust. She may have thought back to all the turmoil she had experienced, which she had described in the narrative of Sojourner Truth, printed by Garrison the year before. On May 29, 1851, day 2 of the meeting, men came in full force to berate the resolutions. The convention turned into a bitter argument over gender. Male ministers preached about superior male intellect, the gender of Jesus, Eve's sin, the feebleness of women, all to counter the equal rights resolutions. The feebleness of women, all of this to counter the equal rights resolutions. The women were growing weary when Sojourner Truth, who had kept her head bowed almost the whole time, raised her head up. She lifted her body slowly and started walking to the front. "Don't let her speak," some of the women shouted. Before the audience now, she laid her eyes on the convention organizer. Gage announced her and begged the audience for silence. Quiet came in an instant as all the eyes on white faces became transfixed on the single dark face. She was the only black person there. Black woman at that. Truth straightened her back and raised herself to her full height, all 6 feet. She was 6 feet tall. She towered over nearby men. "Ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm." Truth showed off her bulging muscles. Ain't I as a woman? I can outwork, out-eat, outlast any man. Ain't I a woman? Sojourner Truth had shut down and shut up the male hecklers. As she returned to her seat, Truth could not help but see the steaming eyes, the hearts beating with gratitude from the women, the muddled days of the men. Truth imparted a double blow in Ain't I a Woman, an attack on the sexist ideas of the male disruptors, and an attack on the racist ideas of females trying to banish her. Ain't I a woman in all of my strength and power and tenderness and intelligence? Ain't I a woman in all of my dark skin? Never again would anyone unfold more seamlessly the dual challenge of anti-racist feminism. Harriet Beecher Stowe, no doubt, heard about Sojourner Truth's speech in Garrison's The Liberator, or through correspondence with Ohio suffragists and abolitionists. But the attention of this gifted writer was not on the awakening suffrage movement. It was on the outrages of the Fugitive Slave Act, which was sending fugitives and free black people back to the cotton fields. And Stowe learned about these outrages from letters that her younger sister, Isabella, was sending her from Connecticut. The letters were often read aloud in the parlor for Harriet's 7 children to hear. "Now, Hattie," Isabella wrote her big sister in one such letter, "if I could use a pen as you can, I would write something that would make this whole nation feel what an accursed thing slavery is. Harriet Beecher Stowe rose from her chair. I will write something, she declared. I will write if I live. Titled, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Stowe's living dramatic reality entered bookstores on March the 20th, 1852. The scenes of this story, she opened the novel's preface, lie among an exotic race whose character was so essentially unlike the hard and dominant Anglo-Saxon race. In Black people's lowly docility of heart, their aptitude to repose on a superior mind and rest on a higher power, their childlike simplicity of affection, the facility of forgiveness, she wrote. In all these, they will exhibit the highest form of the peculiarly Christian life. Only enslavement was holding them back. In one novel, Stowe ingeniously achieved what Garrison had been trying to do for roughly 2 decades in an article after article in The Liberator. For the cosmic shift to anti-slavery, Stowe did not ask Americans to change their deep-seated beliefs. She only asked for them to alter the implications, the meaning of their deep-seated beliefs. Stowe met Americans where they were, in the concreteness of racist ideas. She accepted the nationally accepted premise of the enslaver. Naturally docile and intellectually inferior Black people were disposed to their enslavement to white people. And Stowe crucially tacked on to God. Stowe inverted Cotton Mather and all those preachers after him who had spent years trying to convince planters that Christianity made Black people better slaves. She claimed that since docile Blacks made the best slaves, they made the best Christians. Since domineering whites made the worst slaves, they made the worst Christians. Stowe offered Christian salvation to white America through anti-slavery. In order to become better Christians, white people must constrain their domineering temperament and end the evil outgrowth of their temperament, which is slavery. Uncle Tom's Cabin was a powerfully effective tool for Stowe's racist abolitionism because it was such as an awesome page turner. An indebted Kentucky slaveholder plans to sell the enslaved religious leader, Uncle Tom, and the young son of Eliza Harris. Eliza grabs her son, flees, and reunites in northern freedom with her fugitive husband, George Harris. Tom stays and is sold south. Heading downriver on a boat, Tom saves a pious little white girl, Eva, who had fallen in the river. Grateful, her father, Augustine St. Clair, buys Tom. The relations of Tom and Eva sit at the novel's thematic center. Stowe created the double character, the naturally Christian Tom / Eva, to highlight her conception of Black people being more feminine, docile, childlike, and affectionate, which allows Christianity to find a more congenial atmosphere in Black bodies. In a major proselytizing proselytizing battle, Stowe pits the soulful Christian Black slave Tom against the mindful, unchristian white master, St. Clair. Thou hast hid from the wise and prudent and revealed unto babes, Tom says in biblical style. Black people were spiritually superior because of their intellectual inferiority, Stowe maintained. This spiritual superiority allowed Blacks to have soul. Stowe's popularization of spiritually gifted Black people quickly became a central pillar of African American identity as Black readers consumed the book and passed on its racist ideas. Well, let me read that again. Stowe's popularization of spiritually gifted Black people quickly became a central pillar of African American identity as Black readers consumed the book and passed on its racist ideas. Racist whites, believing themselves to be void of soul, made it their personal mission to find soul through black people. Told they ain't got no, they still ain't got no soul. They knew it then and they know it now. Good day, Call Dog. It's so good to see you, my brothers. It's good to see y'all. Yeah, white folks knew it then and they know it now. And now I know it. When I read Dr. Ray Hagen's and I wrote it down up there, I'm confirmed. It's confirmed for me. I have no doubt in my mind that, yeah, it's true. But, you know, I digress. I just wanted to get a little commentary in there and stuff because I'm going to read this whole chapter right here. Oh, and I was wrong about Tom, Uncle Tom. When I read that Uncle Tom returned the slaves home in the book that I read, I must have miscomprehended that. He let the slaves go free or whatever. They didn't get sold. They sold him instead. If they weren't going to sell Tom, if he'd have ran away with Eliza and her son, they would have had to sell all of the other slaves. So her son ran away to freedom, but Tom stayed and they sold him, but everybody else got to stay with their families. They got to stay there. Yeah, I think in my earlier readings and stuff, because I was kind of pissed at Tom. I'm still slighted by Tom, though, because he fell in love with the little girl, Eva. He fell in love with the little girl, Eva. And her daddy, he did save her in the book that I read. And they bought her. The little girl wanted her daddy to buy Tom, so he bought Tom. But when they got back to the plantation, the little girl got sick. And she was terminally sick and stuff. And Tom was just walking and just in love with the little girl and stuff. That threw me off right there and stuff. I didn't like that part. Because I didn't see Tom seeing no love for the black kids that was on that plantation. There were black kids on that plantation too. But so let's read. The relations of Tom and Eva. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah, the relations of Tom and Eva sat at the novel's thematic center. Stowe created the double character, the naturally Christian Tom / Eva, to highlight her conception of blacks being more feminine, docile, childlike, and affectionate, which allows Christianity to find a more congenial atmosphere in black bodies. In a major perceptualizing battle, Stowe pits the soulful Christian black slave, Tom, against the mindful, unchristian white master, St. Clair. Thou hast hid from the wise and prudent, and revealed unto babes, Tom says in biblical style. Blacks were superior spiritually because of their intellectual inferiority, Stowe maintained. This spiritual superiority allowed blacks to have soul. Stowe's popularization of spiritually gifted black people quickly became a central pillar of African-American identity as black readers consumed the book and passed on its racist ideas. Now, I don't know if they're talking about her book or the Bible, because the Bible was racist too, telling you to obey your master. That was racist, in my opinion, allegedly to me, in my opinion. So, yeah, but I assume it's talking about her book, which I'm going to get that book and we're going to read it again. I'm going to read it again. Racist whites, believing themselves to be void of soul, made it their personal mission to find soul through black people in life and in the afterlife. It's through you that they can have soul, that they can get to this heaven. Because if you believe that their vision of heaven is heaven, then it is heaven. You see, if you believe it, then for them, yeah, it is heaven. And that's where they want you at. And then we read earlier in this book that your soul is not yours no more. White folks done turned it white. Your body might be black on earth, but when you pass away and you go up there, you make it to heaven, your soul is white. Your mannerisms is white. Everything about you will be white. However, you will still be picking cotton. You still will be branded the same as you were on this planet under white people. This is just a means, a way to get them where they need to go. this heaven. Because see, they can't go no further than heaven. They cannot go past heaven. They can't go out into the afterlife, out into the 12th of never, the 3rd of never. They can't go out there. They can just go to that medium right there, heaven, and that's it. All of that out there, they can't go out there. So you are the key, Black America. It's all about you, your mindset. We got to change it. I know it's been years, decades, when we never knew this before. Nobody ever told us this. Well, now you know. Yep, now you know. Racist blacks, believing themselves to be void of intellect, made it their personal mission to find intellect through white people. Yep, they getting sold through you. You getting intellect through them, which really ain't intellect. It's a whole bunch of dumbing you down. A whole bunch of dumbing you down. Yeah, it's very diabolical. Misleading, miseducation. Yeah, very conniving. Black Americans almost immediately made Uncle Tom the identifier of black submissiveness while accepting Stowe's underlying racist idea that made Uncle Tom so submissive. Blacks were especially spiritual. They especially had soul. And these black people were inferior to biracial people in Stowe's reproduction of biracial racism. Yeah. Even the biracial kids and stuff. Black people were inferior to them. The only 4 adult characters who run away are the novel's 4 biracial captives, the tragic mulattoes. Though appearing and acting white, they are tragically imprisoned by blackness. And yet, in their intellectual and aesthetic superiority, in their active resistance to enslavement, Stowe distinguishes the mulattoes from the full black. In the novel's concluding remarks, Stowe called for Northerners to teach blacks until they reached moral and intellectual maturity, and then assist them in their passage to Africa, where they may put into practice the lessons they have learned in America. Whoa. Her call was a godsend to the vanishing American colonization society. Uncle Tom's Cabin and black people fed up with the United States revitalized the colonization movement in the 1850s. President Fillmore intended to endorse colonization in his 1852 message to Congress. There can be no well-grounded hope, he was going to say, for the improvement of either blacks' moral or their social condition until they are removed from a humiliating sense of inferiority in the presence of a superior race. So, yeah, he said there can be no well-grounded hope for the improvement of either blacks' moral or social condition until they are removed from a humiliating sense of inferiority in the presence of a superior race. Until we get away, until we leave America, we'll never feel superior or non-inferior around white folks. Something like that, along them lines. Although they were admitted in the speech itself, these remarks found their way into newspapers. Garrison revered Uncle Tom in his book review of March 26, 1852. But he was virtually alone in his anti-racist questioning of Stowe's religious bigotry. Is there one law of submission and non-resistance for the black man, and another law of rebellion and conflict for the white man? Are there 2 Christs? Garrison also regretted seeing the sentiments respecting African colonization. His anti-racist religiosity, religiosity, religiosity. His anti-racist religiosity hardly made waves like his critique of Stowe's endorsement of colonization. Frederick Douglass was also wary of Stowe's embrace of colonization, although he did not criticize her portrait of the soulful Uncle Tom. He sent off an assimilationist and anti-Indian letter to Stowe, explaining why black people would never accept colonization. This black man, unlike the Indian, loves civilization, Douglas wrote. He does not make very great progress in civilization himself, but he likes to be in the midst of it. And not totally rebuking Stowe in her novel, the most influential black men in America hardly slowed the consumption of the novel's racist ideas. No one came closer to totally trashing Uncle Tom's Cabin than a black writer and physician named Martin R. Delaney. He had become disillusioned about abolitionism because its proponents had not come to his aid when he had been ejected from Harvard Medical School in 1850. Oh, honey, he was mad. He had been accepted along with two other black students, but when they arrived, white students had called for their dismissal. In 1852, Delaney released his largely anti-racist The Condition, Elevation, Immigration, and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States, politically considered. Anti-slavery societies, Delaney charged, presumed to think for, dictate to, and know better what suited colored people than they know for themselves. Black people had two choices: continued degradation in the United States or establishment of a prosperous community elsewhere, meaning colonization on black terms. Even on black terms, black people still mostly opposed colonization. Yeah, proselytizing. That's the word. Oh, okay, that's another word for converting. You know, like they be always trying to convert you to Christianity. And remember that time that lady was trying to convert me to to her religion and stuff. And I took the books and stuff like that. The other lady, the other sister, I gave her books back. But I did take the prayer rug, and I got some Islam Bibles in there, Islam books and stuff. But the other Bible and stuff with the DVD, I done turned a couple of them down and stuff because I don't want anybody's religion at this point. I'm gonna read it and stuff and study it and learn it, but unless I have a change of heart, I don't want nobody's religion because I'm not going to heaven. I'm not going to heaven. I'm not going to hell. Yeah, I'll leave that to white folks and other folks that believe in white folks. But let's read those. Thank you, Call Dog. I need to get a Black's Law Dictionary, the fifth edition. I think it's going to be the fifth edition. While splitting on colonization in the 1850s, black male activists, seemingly united in their distaste of Uncle Tom for disseminating the stereotype of the weak black male, for some time, racist black patriots have been measuring their masculinity off of the perceived controlling masculinity of white men, and they found black masculinity to be lacking. Let me read that again. While splitting on colonization in the 1850s, black male activists seemed united in their distaste of Uncle Tom for disseminating the stereotype of the weak black male. I hope it was because he fell in love with the little white girl. If talking about that. For some time, racist black patriots have been measuring their masculinity off of the perceived controlling masculinity of white men, and they found black masculinity to be lacking. They demanded control of black women, families, and communities to redeem their masculinity from the weak black male stereotype. Oh, okay. So they saw Uncle Tom as being weak and showing the world how weak the black man was. They used Uncle Tom for that. Now, it ain't letting me know if that's about him having so much love and compassion for the little girl, or if it was because he let everybody stay at home and he went and got sold out. So I don't know. I imagine it's because, he showed that love for the little girl. But then to want to control the black women the home and everything to be more like the white man because they felt lacking in their masculinity? Could it be because of how the white men were treating them and everybody else? And so the black man had to make up for it and show his ruthlessness too. Is that where all of this come from? The violence, the intenseness in our relationships. We can't get along. We can't work things out. We can't have a moment of silence sometimes in our relationships and stuff, in our marriages, in our homes, our families. They demanded control of black women, the families, and communities to redeem their masculinity from the weak black male stereotype. As anti-slavery black patriots petitioned in 1773 in Massachusetts, how can the wives submit themselves to their husbands in all things if blacks remained enslaved? And then at the male-dominated National Convention of Colored Citizens in Syracuse in 1864, they complained, "We have been denied ownership of our bodies, our wives, our home, our children, and the products of our own labor. These black men resolved to vindicate our manhood as if it needed any vindication. It could not have been a coincidence that while women like Southern the Truth were asserting their rights to gender equity in the 1850s and the early 1860s, black and white men were asserting their right to rule women." The sexist opposition seemed wrapped up in the pro-slavery opposition, especially since a woman had penned Uncle Tom's Cabin. Southerners hailed the publication of Caroline Lee Hentz's The Planter's Northern Bride and William Gilmore Simms' The Sword and the Distaff, the most prominent of the more than 20 plantation school novels published in the reactionary aftermath of Uncle Tom's Cabin. The most prominent of the more than 20 plantation school novels published in the reactionary aftermath of Uncle Tom's Cabin. In these books, professorial, Professorial, so they like professors, professorial planters and their pure and upright wives civilized their animal-like or childlike contented captives on their family farms. These plantation novelists could write up some fiction. Although Uncle Tom's Cabin may not have spread among Southerners as widely as the plantation school books, a large number of Southerners did get their hands on it. Mrs. Stowe says that the chief wrong in the catalog of sins against the Negro is the prejudice of caste, the antipathy of race, the feeling we crush into their souls that they are nothing but niggers, wrote a Georgia lady in DeBow's Review, DEBOW, DeBow's Review. Mrs. Stowe was forgetting. She said, Miss Stowe said, the fact that their maker created them nothing but niggers. Yeah, her book was racist. Neither the Free Soil upsurge nor the anti-slavery upsurge from the Fugitive Slave Act and Uncle Tom's Cabin could overcome the political party's overwhelming propaganda or the sectional and slavery tensions during the presidential election of 1852. New Hampshire's flamboyant Mexican-American war general, Franklin Pierce, ready to turn the nation's attention from slavery towards national expansion, won in a rout for the Democrats. The question is at rest, Pierce proclaimed in his first inaugural address in 1853. Abolitionists will never rest until the internal overthrow of slavery. The 47-year-old Garrison shot back. In 1853, the American Anti-Slavery Society refused to admit defeat in the wake of Franklin Pierce's victory. Members celebrated their 20th anniversary in celebrating Garrison in order to put him before as many eyes as possible. It mirrored the international effort in 1853 to put the recently deceased University of Pennsylvania polygenist polygenesis. Samuel Morton before the public and hailed him as the exemplary pioneer. Joseph C. Knott, Josiah C. Knott, N-O-T-T, and George Glidden published on April 1st, 1853, the monumental Types of Mankind, 800 pages of polygenesis dedicated to the memory of Morton, M-O-R-T-O-N. For visual learners, they inserted an illustration of 2 columns of faces adjoining skulls. The Greek at the top, the ape at the bottom, the Negro in the middle. The debate over the primitive origin of the races was the last grand battle between science and dogmatism. Who would win? Science must again and finally triumph. Types of Mankind appeared during a crowded 1853. A critical year for segregationist ideas, making the case for permanent Black inferiority, while assimilationist abolitionists advanced. Democrats welcomed the publication of New York editor John H. Van Every's Negroes and Negro Slavery. Van Every ran at the front of the stampede of Northern pro-slavery, pro-white pamphleteers chasing down the abolitionist movement in the 1850s. God has made the Negro an inferior being, not in most cases, but in all cases, Van Every declared. That's E-V-R-I-E, Van Every. The same almighty creator made all white men equal. Over in France in 1853, aristocratic royalist Arthur de Gobineau, G-O-B-I-N-E-A-U, Gobineau, released his 4th volume, Sur l'Internalized des Races Humaines. It stands for An Essay on the Inequality of the Human Races. Gobineau's demand for France's return to aristocracy included an analysis of the colossal truth of racial hierarchy, of polygenesis. The intelligent white lovers of liberty were at the top. The yellow race was the middle class. And at the bottom were the greedy, sexual Black people. Blacks' abnormal physical traits had developed to compensate for their stupidity, Gobineau wrote. He wrote that Blacks' abnormal physical traits had developed to compensate for their stupidity. Within the white species, the Aryan was supreme, as was the supreme maker of all great civilizations in history the world over. Germans embraced Gobineau, especially since he said Aryans were la race germanique. In 1856, Josiah C. Knott arranged for the translation of Gobineau's book into English. Though the book was expensive and it had a lot of competition for readers' attention, Types of Mankind sold out almost immediately. Honey, it was handsomely welcomed in Europe, as well regarded as an excellent treatment of the preeminently American science of polygenesis, as the New York Herald wrote. The reviewer of Putnam's Monthly accepted polygenesis too, explaining that the nations are of one blood, therefore not genealogically, but spiritually. Cotton Mather's old case of spiritual equality and bodily inequality to square slavery and Christianity was now squaring polygenesis and Christianity. In Putnam's competitor, Harper's Magazine, Herman Melville, who had just authored Moby Dick, issued the G's. Like the BGs, where this is like the G's, G-E-E-S. The anti-racist satire relentlessly mocked the contradictions of polygenesis. The fictional G's are people ranking pretty high in incivility, but rather low in stature and morals. They have a great appetite, but little imagination, a very large eyeball, but small insight. Biscuit he crunches, but sentiment he eschews. Meanwhile, the character of Queen Queequeg, the character of Queequeg, Queequeg, in Moby Dick gave Melville a chance to racially to challenge racial stereotypes. I never read Moby Dick. Types of Mankind was so popular and it was so influential, though, that it compelled the first major response to polygenesis by an African American, the Reverend Martin B. Anderson, the first president of the University of Rochester, loaned the book to his friend Frederick Douglass, honey. Anderson also handed over works by Knott, Glidden, and Morton. Douglass uses his first formal address before a college audience, Cleveland's Case Western Reserve, on July 12, 1854, to mount a spirited rebuttal. The address was published that year in Rochester, and Douglass recycled the message in other speeches for years, y'all. That's who he was talking about in some of his speeches. I know y'all know which ones they was. Before the Knotts, before the Gliddens, before the Agassiz, the Mortons made their profound discoveries, speaking in the name of science, Douglass said. Humans believed in monogenesis. Nearly all advocates of polygenesis hold it to be the privilege of the Anglo-Saxon to enslave and oppress the African. He went on. When men oppress their fellow men, the oppressor ever finds in the character of the oppressed a full justification for his oppression. Douglass amazingly summed up the history of racist ideas in a single sentence. When men oppress their fellow men, the oppressor ever finds in the character of the oppressed a full justification for his oppression. Prosperity. After effortlessly proven, yeah, I'm sleepy, y'all. Let's get through with this. We ain't got long. Oh, no. We ain't got long. Maybe 20 minutes. After effortlessly proving the ancient Egyptians were black, labeling Types of Mankind the most compendious. That's a new word. compendious. Compendious and barefaced attempt ever to brand the Negro with natural inferiority and rooting all human differences in environment, Douglass turns from his anti-racist best to his racist worst. He references the work of biracial physician James McCoon Smith of New York, who had the single greatest influence on Douglass's life, more than Garrison. At Scotland's University of Glasgow in the 1830s, Smith had earned bachelor's, master's, and medical degrees, the first American of African descent to do so ever. The hair of black people was growing more and more straight, Smith once rejoiced. These influences, climate and cultural, will ultimately produce a uniform American of white skin and straight hair. These influences will ultimately produce a uniform American of white skin and straight hair. Leaning on Smith's climate theory and cultural racism, Douglass asked the students in Cleveland, need we go behind the vicissitudes of barbarism for an explanation of the gaunt, wiry, W-I-R-Y, wiry ape-like appearance of some of the genuine Negroes? Need we look higher than a vertical sun or lower than the damp black soil of West Africa for an explanation of the Negro's color? While Douglass beat the vicissitudes of barbarism into Africa, he ascribed the very heart of the civilized world into England. He had emerged as the most famous black male abolitionist and assimilationist in the United States. The cutting up of the Bible, root and branch, in Gobineau's Types of Mankind did not sit well with the most famous white male abolitionist and assimilationist either. William Lloyd Garrison reviewed the segregationist book on October 13, 1854, in his first bout, too, with polygenesis. Garrison took aim, in particular at Josiah C. Knott, who had said that he looked in vain during 20 years for a solitary exception to Jefferson's verdict of never finding a black had uttered a thought above the level of plain narrative. This is something extraordinary, said Garrison sardonically, that Jefferson should beget so many stupid children. Well, damn. Garrison took aim in particular at Josiah C. Knott, who had said that Josiah said that he looked in vain during 20 years for a solitary exception to Jefferson's verdict of never finding a black had uttered a thought above the level of plain narrative. This is something extraordinary, said Garrison sardonically, that Jefferson should beget so many stupid children. Though they were firmly united against types of mankind, against segregationist ideas, and against slavery, Douglas and Garrison eventually grew apart. When Frederick Douglass attacked the paternalism of white abolitionists and recognized the need for black organizing, interracial organizers lashed back, Garrison included. They lashed back on Frederick Douglass. What you think they'll do for us, for you? Yeah, so you might well go on and cut the cord now. Just no infiltrating right now. By the summer and fall of 1853, though, invective filled the pages of Frederick Douglass's paper and the Liberator. Garrison issued his most damning comment in the Liberator on September the 23rd, 1853. The sufferers from American slavery and prejudice as a class were unable to perceive the demands of the movement or to understand the philosophy of its operations. Now, what's done happened here? Oh, good day, Leah. It's so good to see you, my sister. It is so good to see you. You are so welcome, my sister. And I appreciate your videos, too. I saw them today when I was out running some errands. And I thought about you. Yep. All along, mutual friends tried to stop the quarrel. Before the year expired, though, Harriet Beecher Stowe stepped between Douglass and Garrison. She achieved what others could not. After all, the best-selling Uncle Tom's Cabin had catapulted Stowe to the pinnacle of the abolitionist movement, overlooking both Douglass and Garrison. Her novel was drawing more Northerners to the movement than the writings and the speeches of Douglass and Garrison, especially and crucially, the women who were firing the nation up for their rights. Stowe's letter to both men held them back. The bitter warfare tailed off and it stopped. They each forgave, but they didn't forget. They each turned their attention to the controversy that undermined the finality platform of the Pierce administration in 1854, honey, we made it. Yes, chapter 16. But we ain't going to read chapter 16. I think we're going to go on to the birth of a nation. Oh, what's this? Oh, Black Judases. I'm going to look and see what I'm going to choose. What's next? What next chapter? Southern Horrors. Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to Birth of a Nation. But we won't be reading the whole book, though, because I can't read the whole book anymore. But we are reading the whole chapters that I choose. I just got to keep up with the commentary so that I don't be stepping on no infringing toes and stuff like that. I thank you so much for being here. And you know it's going to take me a minute to get acclimated again. But I will. I'll get acclimated to the reading and stuff. And yeah, I really appreciate y'all. And let's just process this too. Like we do every night, every noon that we do read, we process these things and stuff. And some stuff that I be listening to. Like when I go to our brother Julian Johnson's channel. And I have to process a lot of stuff from there. And like our other channels, the Runaway Slave channel and Taylor House Publishing. So everywhere you go when we learning so much and stuff, we do have to process these things. The good too. It's good to put the good things into perspective too, so that we can utilize them and always keep them at hand. You know, some things and stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to let us go. But you know, process this. Keep you some gratitude and keep a song in your heart. Because right now, things have never been this way. All of this is unprecedented, y'all. Everything is unprecedented. It's the first time for all of this. But everything that's being revealed is for a reason. It's for a reason. It's just time for us to try to get on code with everything. Try to get on code with things and stuff. I promise you, our little effort is going to go a long way. Them little efforts is going to add up. It's going to add up. I'm finna move my garden on the inside. It's getting chilly here in the morning time. Maybe another week or two. Maybe 3 weeks if we can hold out. I don't know. Minnesota funny like that. But I may not end up with everything that's out here. But the effort, what I do end up with is going to be a full harvest. I'm claiming it's going to be a full harvest. And I forgot who was there offered me some solar lights, some plant lights. Well, I don't order my own. Thank you so much, though. But I ordered my own and stuff. Yeah. And yeah, I love y'all to life and afterlife. And let's just get some sleep, get us some rest. Yeah. Oh, I know. The Birth of a Nation. It is long. I started watching it some years ago, but it was only like the first 10 or 20 minutes. It was a silent movie, black and white. But we're going to get to it again. Do you order your literature or do you purchase here? Oh, I order books. I go to the library and get books. I look in little library houses and get books out of there, and I return some books that I don't want to keep in my library anymore. I put some of them books in there and stuff. Books that be in the lobbies and stuff. Yeah, I get books wherever I see books at. I get books, yeah. I just try to keep them rotated. Some books that are old and stuff and the wrong books. Like I have found some books that don't fit on the front shelves of this library, like Helen Keller. I got Helen Keller, but it's in the back somewhere. It's in the back because I've read it before and stuff. And eventually I'll probably get rid of it. You know, once this library right here grows and stuff, because I can't see myself reading Helen Keller like that no more. Maybe just to be reading it, but to be just holding it and keeping up space and stuff. I'd rather get rid of that and maybe find a stolen legacy. You know, or something like that. But yeah. Yeah. So I love y'all. Yeah. Oh yeah, I get books at the Goodwill too. I'm gonna start going to the Salvation Army. I think it's one over north, over south, over on 7th somewhere. I ain't never been there. It's been years, maybe 15 years. But I'm gonna start going there too and stuff because I really want my library to grow. Y'all work on y'all library too. You know, we working on our garden. So we can be able to feed ourselves and stuff and have a little stir fries going on and stuff. And also work on your personal garden, your personal library. So you'll always have entertainment. You'll always have education there, entertainment there. You know, put some crossword puzzles off in there and stuff for the babies and stuff. We got books and then they got other stuff too. So, you know, just to go with our library and stuff, painting and stuff like that. That way, you know, when it ain't nothing to do and we ain't got nowhere to go and, you know, we just basically locked in, shut in. If it ever happens again, like that lockdown bullshit with that pandemic, then we won't just go crazy and just lose our damn minds and stuff. We'll be in the house reading. Everybody take a turn reading. You know, we'll make a game out of it. You know, whoever ain't reading and stuff, yeah, well, you get over there and cook while we all read and stuff. We take turns and stuff. Yeah, we're gonna come through this. We're gonna come through this. We just gotta work try by error. I do try by error, but yeah. Okay, I love y'all and peace and power to the people.